Hi everyone and welcome. Today we've got another Easter tutorial and we're going to be making this little bunny rabbit with one single square of fabric. Now if you've seen my chicken tutorial you'll be familiar with the concept. So basically we make one square of knitted or crochet fabric and then we fold it in a particular way that makes the shape. If you've not seen that video I'll link it below, but apart from that let's get started. So today I'm going to be knitting the piece, but you can also crochet a square as well, just with single crochets. If you are using fluffy yarn like me, I would suggest knitting because it's much easier to see your stitches. So I've cast on 20 stitches here. If you need a tutorial for this, I will link my knitting basics playlist in the description box. But this is the simple part of the tutorial. All we have to do is keep on knitting in garter stitch until we have a square. If you need to know the knit stitch, that will also be in the knitting basics playlist, or like I said, you can do single crochets. Feel free to check out my chicken tutorial if you want a little bit more guidance. So now I have a square. You can do yours based on measurement. So for example, mine was 5 inches wide, so I worked it until it was 5 inches long. Or a good quick way to check is if you fold your square in half, this length should be the same as this length. So the corners should meet into a perfect triangle. That's just a quick tip. You can kind of check your progress that way as you're working. So now what I'm going to do is cast off. So all I'm doing is knit the first 2 stitches, and then to cast off I pull the first stitch over the second stitch, pulling it off the end of the needle so it tucks around that second stitch, and now I just have 1 stitch left. Then we continue, add another stitch, pull the first one over the top of the second one. Just do this all the way until we are on our last stitch. I know it's a bit tricky to see with the fluffy yarn, but if you are unfamiliar with casting off like this and you would like a tutorial, feel free to drop me a comment below. So I've got my last stitch left on my needle, I've cut the end of my yarn, and now I'm just going to pull that through to finish fastening off. We can set our needles to one side now. So now we're going to move on to how we stitch and fold this to make this bunny shape. So to form the rabbit shape, we're going to make a triangle with our sewing. So we're going to go a line directly down the middle of the square, and then in the middle of the opposite way, we're going to connect to make a triangle. And then I'll explain what parts this will make. So I'm going to stitch with a contrast thread initially just for demonstration purposes so that you can see where the stitches are going and what kind of stitches we're using. So I'm finding the middle and I'm just pulling my yarn through. I'm leaving a bit of tail at the end there, and then all along this side I'm going to make quite chunky stitches. It's like a dashed line here. Just continue this all the way along until we get right to the other side. So here's what we have so far. I'm going to join up with the middle point here. I'm going to go this way, then this way with the same stitches to make the triangle shape. So you don't have to worry about being too neat, because really the purpose of these stitches is gathering. sides of our triangle, then we're going to join back up to the start here. Here we are, here is our triangle. So I'll just explain to you. So this back panel, the rectangle, is going to be the body of the bunny. The part within the triangle is the head, and then these two smaller triangles on the outside are the ears. So I will just show you what we do. So to form these parts, we're just going to pull the strings tight as they can go, and you're basically gathering all the fabric together. And then you will have the triangle here will form like a little circular pocket, and that is the face. And then as you can see, the ears are at the top here and the body is back here. I'm just going to go back and repeat that process, but with the yarn that I will be stitching with. So I've gone back and used a white thread this time so that it's less visible for the final result, and I've pulled it tight again, and to secure that I'm just going to tie a knot so that we don't lose that shape. There we are, so you can see the face here, and that was the triangle, and then we've got the two ears and the body, of course. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew the gap that's behind the neck and in between the ears. So basically I just do a stitch here and then a couple of stitches there. So I'm just doing the neck first. There we are. And then before I close the gap, I'm actually going to stuff the head. So I'm just using some fibre filling to get right into that face area to make sure it's nice and plump so that you can see the rounded shape that we want. And you can see that's a lot more what we're looking for. So I'm just going to sew the gap between the ears and the neck. There we are, so you can see the back of the ears and the face now. You can carry on and stitch across the back, but I'm actually going to stitch this side first and show you something that you can do as an option. So I'm just going to stitch up this end just with a simple stitching using these tail ends, and then I'll come back and show you. Here we are, so we've sewed up the back there, and I've just got a gap here. Now, one option you can do for Easter, you can take a chocolate egg and you can pop this in the back and use it as a little pouch as a way to gift these chocolate eggs, which I think is quite cute. Or you can do what I'm going to do and just stuff the back and then stitch up the rest. So I'm just going to go along and stitch that up. So here's the bunny fully stuffed, and you can see the shape now. You can't really tell that it's made from just a square, maybe apart from the ears, I guess. All that's left to do is just embroider some features. So I'm just going to use some pink yarn, and in the middle of the face, at the front, I'm just going to do 2 little horizontal stitches. And that's my little pink bunny nose. And for the eyes, I'm just using some black yarn, doing 3 or 4 vertical stitches. Just doing mine in front of the ears, and then of course repeating on the other side. Okay, so here is the finished bunny rabbit. I added some little white highlights to the eyes, and you can add a pom-pom if you want, or I just did a few loose stitches in a fluffy yarn. But yeah, here is the finished product. Let me know if you try this, what colours you'd use, and yeah, see you in the next video. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, check me out on social media, and I'll see you next time.